phone to address council as a delegation or to provide a citizen's comment or to ask a question during question period, please remember to don your mask to approach the podium and microphone. You may remove your mask to speak, but you must wear your mask to return to your seat. If you need to adjust the microphone while at the podium, please remember to sanitize it after you have completed your time at the podium. Adhering to these protocols will help allow council to continue to meet in person and to continue to invite the public to gather for our meetings. Are there any other announcements this evening? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if everyone got the update a week or so ago, but speaking with Janelle from Cornerstone regarding the walk a mile, and it was kind of troublesome for them this year to get everything together, but we should say she was well pleased to see how much money they raised. The number was over 51,000. So kudos to them, and once again, thank you to council and staff for participating.
Good news. Thank you for that. Any other announcements? Councillor Bateman?
Not really an announcement for anything that happened. I just want to congratulate all the residents because I didn't hear of anything negative from Halloween. I know there was kids out, but I heard nothing but good things on the spacing and the distancing. And also Councillor LeBlanc and the mayor and I did some pumpkin carving, some better than others is all I'll say.
Well, Councillor LeBlanc, mine was no, well, it might have been a Picasso actually. It was so wonky, but that's another story. Are there any other announcements? Thank you both. And with that, we move to adoption of the minutes, moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council approve the October 19th, 2020 Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening. We have no delegations. That brings us to citizens' comment, and we do have one from Kathy McCormick with regard to the refreshment bylaw. Mrs. McCormick, welcome back to council meetings. Yeah, if you just put, if you push this button at the side, Kathy. And then the one in front of you. There you go.
Oh, great. Hi, I'm back again. Always for the same thing. My comment for, actually, I had more, but I've had it clarified by the bylaw officer, so that's a big help. But my one concern is with the license. Right now, our licenses are good to December 31st. So in the bylaw, it states that a municipal license is only good from April 1st to November 21st. So say I'm going to use Emily the holiday train as an example. All of the money that we do a percentage after all the food and everything's taken out, if that is the case, then I would have to go out and get a special events license to go ahead and do fundraising or whatever we do after November 1st or whenever we're done. So I would just like clarification why that is if I'm on private property, I can go in and get my license on January 1st if I want to, for where I'm going to set up. Don't have to use it, and it's good till December 31st. But if I go on municipal property and pay the same price as anybody else, then I only get to use my license from April 1st till November 1st. So, like I've said, I've had a discussion with the bylaw officer, so I've got things straightened out except for this. So why is it that I have to pay the same amount as everybody else that's on private property, and my license wouldn't be any good after November 1st? And to do fundraisers or whatever, or before then actually. We do a lot of, say, school. We were going to do Smithfield this year, except for, so I would have to get a special events license, which means the money that was going to that fundraiser would then be, you know, the cost of the $30 would have to be taken off the money that's going to that thing. So that's all I wanted.
Thank you very much. I will ask Mr. McGee to speak to that when we get to his report.
That's fine.
Fair enough?
All right.
Thank you. If you just push the, okay. That's excuse me. And that's the only citizen comment we have this evening, which we will discuss again during Mr. McGee's report under 10.3. So we do move into staff reports. And the first staff report is with regard to Tax Assistant Information Report. Ms. Whitfield, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receive the Tax Assistant's report as information. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Oh. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, to Linda Whitfield. Instead of receiving this report, would you like it, instead of being received, to be approved?
No, council had requested information, and so I brought it back as information.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you both. The next report is with regard to the Resilient Communities Funding Grant. Oh, Councillor Tadman, go ahead.
Thank you. The only thing that, Mayor, that I think the residents need to be aware of the fact that if they're having problems paying their taxes, and I know that this happens, that they can go to the Kathy
Kelly.
Kelly, yeah. And she works out arrangements so that, you know, it doesn't go up for a tax sale. And as long as they meet the requirements and make an agreement that, you know, they don't have to be panicked that their house is going to be taken from them. So I don't know how we get that out to people, but I know that Donna DeLong was good about that when she was the tax collector too, and Linda. And so the public should be aware of that, that option is there.
Well, I do know that when Ms. Kelly is contacted and people are having difficulty paying, she works very hard to make those
Right.
arrangements with people. I'm not sure it's something we would generally advertise, though. Ms. Whitfield?
So when a tax bill is not paid or an arrears notice will go out, that's an opportunity for taxpayers to contact our tax collector and make arrangements. And the same goes with water billing. When a water bill isn't paid, a notice goes out. So when they receive that notice, that's their opportunity to call and make some payment arrangements. And as long as people stick within whatever arrangements are made with staff, water doesn't get shut off and taxes don't go into that tax sale envelope.
And does that arrears letter make note of that arrangements can be made or
Yeah.
some such wording as
And
this?
who to call, what extension,
Okay.
et cetera.
All right. Councillor Bateman.
No, that was the question I was going to ask, if that verbiage was on the bill.
Councillor Tadman.
I just wanted to bring it up again because maybe some councillors didn't know that was available. So because I've had people ask me, and I've actually even come with them to, because some people aren't comfortable doing that kind of thing.
Well, and it's not a comfortable time in your life
no,
if you're
no.
going through those issues. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
so
100%.
if you ever get that kind of a call, you know where to go.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. Anything else before we move on? So the next issue is the Resilient Communities Funding Grant. Mr. Miller, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time. I provided the
I
letter
couldn't find
from
you,
the
Jim. I
library.
didn't know where you were.
All over. Yeah, so I provided the library's request, and I think it's a really good idea. It would help the community and the library itself, because they do have quite a few tables in their meeting room that have books that are being quarantined, and this would actually take that away, obviously.
Expedite those books back on
Expedite
the
it,
shelf.
yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receive the staff report on Resilient Communities Funding Grant, and further that Council endorses the request from the Brighton Public Library for the municipality to submit a grant application for $8,700 on their behalf under the new Ontario Government's Resilient Communities Fund for a new book disinfecting machine. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
Just a quick question. Does that 8,700 cover the full cost of it, or do they need to apply for more?
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. For those who didn't hear, it covers the full cost. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. As Councillor Tadman can attest as well, it was discussed at our last board meeting, and I should say staff would be pretty excited, and want to thank Jim for offering this to them. This, like I said, it not only helps with the books, but it also helps to free up some of their community space that they could use for to get some of their own programs going again in the library itself.
Thank you for that. Anything further? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Next report is with regard to the mobile canteen bylaw. Mr. McGee, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight? And now might be a good opportunity to speak to Mrs. McCormick's concern.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, one comment Mrs. McCormick made about the Smithfield in the bylaw under section 2.3 that they do not require a mobile canteen permit because it's a fundraiser or a private function. You know, some businesses will do customer appreciation, or the Legion has, you know, they do a fundraiser, so they won't require a mobile canteen permit for that. We did, or I did, or staff did, shorten the time frame for municipal property use, partially because of snow clearing. Just make sure that there's, you know, we can make sure we clear the snow, that there's no trailers left there or anything in the way. And we've left ourselves kind of open, or the municipality has left itself open. If we're going to allow for 12-month placement on our property, we're going to see people set up, you know, basically their store on municipal property 12 months out of the year. So that's why that's shortened. We could look at a reduction for the fees. I mean, I think we're looking at the general fees and charges bylaw right now, so we can reduce the fees for municipal property for the mobile canteens because it's shortened. With the special events, originally we wanted to have more mobile canteens on municipal property. Some municipalities do charge a fee, so we could look at removing the fee or taking the fee, maybe lowering it, taking a fee and making a donation towards a community organization, whether it's the food bank or, you know, Sunny Days for, you know, that special event, say like movies in the park. That donation could be made to a community event. So other than that, that's why some of the changes in the bylaw. If council like them changed, we can do that with no problems.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. So I'll read the motion and I'll open the floor for discussion. It's moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receives the staff report dated November 2nd, 2020 regarding mobile canteens, and further that Council repeals bylaw 051-2020 and approves the recommended bylaw to license, regulate, and govern mobile canteens within the municipality of Brighton. Members of Council. Councillor Tadman.
You assigned this so it would come on the floor, and I was talking to Councillor Bateman earlier about this, and I don't think it's fair to charge the same price because if you're on municipal property, you're losing 5 months of the year, so that's not fair. So we should amend the rate. And also, I'd like to have a really strong wording to say that anybody that's doing a fundraiser doesn't have to pay an extra license for the permit to do that, whatever that happens to be. And it always comes through council anyways, but definitely that the wording should be that for a fundraiser, we don't charge.
Very well. Deputy Mayor?
Thanks. I agree that we need to lower the cost if we're going to shorten the time. I'm also wondering, the whole reason for revamping this was because of some issues possibly that we've run into over time. I'm just wondering, does this tick all those boxes, take care of those issues? I don't want anything that's too stringent, but I just want to make sure it's easy to, I guess, maintain at this level.
Mr. McGee?
Through your worship, yeah, we've had to add in a couple more rules, more do's and don'ts. I think the not having them within, on a permanent basis within the DBI boundary was a great start. And then, making sure that we put in here that, the fees are not refundable, that, they can't use food tents as per the health unit, that we're going to require, the proper inspections because it's a health and safety thing. It's not because we want to have, that tight of a system or a series of a system that, they have to go through all these A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. It's just a health and safety thing. And, just to avoid, I guess, future matters that could come up. This bylaw has covered that. Might be too far because, as I said, we've limited the months on municipal property, but it has solved the issues that we had prior.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley?
Well, thank you, Mayor. Just wondering, we're talking special events, and of course, Applefest always comes to mind. I'm not sure at this stage if all of the food vendors that are they going to have to pay that extra $30 as well? I think once again of the McCormick's, they usually set up their hot dog cart on Applefest. Are they going to have to fall into that as well? I don't know if that's a fundraiser for them either. I'm not sure of that, but there again, we have a significant number of food vendors. Is this permit now going to have to be, the extra charge going to have to be part of the application when we're looking into that?
Mr. McGee?
Through your worship, I'm unaware if Applefest ever did charge a fee. I believe they did. It was dealt through the Applefest committee when they brought in the mobile canteens. That's the only event I know that they've charged. I mean, if we want to still keep a charge there. Now, I don't know if the McCormick's, when they were on private property, if they probably still had to pay for Applefest. But I guess if they're going to be on municipal property, maybe that should give them some kind of opportunity to move around on municipal property, whether it's Applefest.
Careful, you don't want to be taking money out of Applefest pocket. Trust me.
That's just an option, but I mean, I had it in there, and I don't know what happened, but more or less, if you had a license with the municipality for that year, then you were exempt from special event fees.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
So, yeah, Applefest, of course, has their own fee structure, and if you do have a food, mobile food unit, then it is more than if you're just setting up. So I wouldn't want them to have to pay this fee and the Applefest fee, seeing as they're both municipal, right? So is there a way to word that?
I thought this fee was the new Applefest fee. I thought that's what the idea was with the special events and a special event permit. So they have a separate fee. Applefest has a separate fee? So
Well, there's a fee to be in Applefest, right?
Okay.
And for for our food vendors, it is more expensive for them than it is for our regular street vendors for this reason, really. Yeah. But, we just need to meld them so that they work together. I guess that's what I want to make sure of, that we're not saying, okay, you have to pay your fee to be in Applefest, and then you have to go get this, and then you have to go get that.
Yeah.
Like, can we... normally you don't want to name something specific in a bylaw, but do we exempt Applefest from this, or is that?
Yeah, we can look at the definition of special events if council wanted to pass on, what events.
Or even generally community events. We
Yeah.
may want to have those discussed differently than,
Yeah. Just so we're not charging people
and whatever community events means. So
Yeah.
is that just events held by the Community Events Committee, or is that Applefest? I think we just want to make sure we're
I believe in the bylaw prior to the last one, special events was a not-for-profit or community event.
right.
And they were exempt from any fees as long as they had, they still have to do a health unit, and a couple other things, so you're not exempt from the health and safety part of it.
Right. Councillor Rowley.
Would council offer, permission for Kathy McCormick to speak, because I can't read her lips. I think she has a comment that might be pertinent to what we're talking about.
Council, okay if we have Mrs. McCormick speak? She's probably the more knowledgeable person in the room about this stuff. Please approach, because everything's recorded, Kathy. I know. And then push the purple button. There you go.
Okay, so normally for like Apple Fest, we have to pay $225 like everybody else does. But then there's a special event, so I guess it's what you classify as special events. So I don't feel that anybody in the municipality that should have to pay that extra $30. Like, for example, if you go to Trenton and you are a food vendor for their street fair. If you live in the municipality, then they actually cut your fees in half because you are a vendor from the municipality. And everybody that comes out, so like when we go to Trenton, I have to pay the full price, but somebody that lives in Trenton doesn't. But I don't pay the fee and then have to pay $30 on top of that because we have a special events, I think it's $30. So it's all depending on what you classify special events. I think that's where everything gets mixed up because what do you classify as special events? Now, Apple Fest isn't a special event. It's only done once a year. So do people have to pay the $225 and then in the, that are from the municipality and then have to pay the $30 on top of that because, because then you're up to, well, it was $225, so then you're up to $255. And that's, getting expensive for people that are for one day, especially when you're from the municipality. So that's just, so we pay for, every time there's an event in Brighton, we pay the fee, unless it's fundraising. But now there's a special event fee of $30. So what does that $30 for? Like, we don't pay anything on music night, so I understand that if they want to charge $30 per night or whatever, they want to do a fee for the summer, like the farmer's market or whatever does, I have no issue with that. But if you're going to have something that is like the Apple Fest that is going to be $225 and then charge us $30 on top of that, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like when you start getting up to $270 and $300 for a day, that's especially, depending on what it is. Food trucks can make that back in no time. But that's, a lot of money to put out when you already have a license in the municipality and you're paying $225 to begin with, kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again. So I am going to suggest we do refer this back to staff, but before we do, I'd like to make sure staff understands what it is our expectations are, so when they bring it back, we don't have to refer it again back to staff. I think that's only fair. Councillor Tadman?
The only question that I would like answered, and it's been so many years since I sat in an Apple Fest committee, and I don't remember it ever being charged then. So does Apple Fest receive the money through the extra fees, or does it go immediately into the funds of the municipality?
What Apple Fest charges covers the cost of Apple Fest.
No, but as Kathy was talking about the
But
first
we've
two,
never charged this extra fee.
the extra,
The $225 is what Apple Fest has always charged, and that has gone to cover the cost of Apple Fest.
so what is Kathy talking about that she pays the extra then?
That's in this bylaw.
That's what
That
we're
would be
talking about.
new.
We don't want
Okay.
we don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So I think, sorry.
No, go ahead, yeah.
So I think what needs to happen is we need to have some sort of clause in there that if the municipality is putting on an event and charging fees, that this $30 does not apply. That would make the most sense, wouldn't it? So that we're not, we don't want to double charge people. If that's a possibility, that's some
I
sort of.
can add wording to fix the issue and bring it back.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, when this was given to me to put together, I was under understanding it's covering all special events, including Apple Fest Committee, to make sure we have the policies and the procedures in place, especially for the health and safety, to make sure that, so that's why Apple Fest was put in.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and Apple Fest does have this whole, you still have to get approved by the health unit. The fire department usually inspect, I mean, all those things are in place for Apple Fest as well, so those things are happening. And so we know who's going to be there. They know what they need to do. They're told what they have to do. So we are following those rules, so we're not going to miss out on that by not getting that extra fee, because those are already in place, so.
Councillor Bateman.
A couple questions. First one, Alan, just clarification under 1.6. Food tents are not permitted to be used on a permanent basis. So if somebody's got a license and they want to have the canopy to protect themselves from the sun and their food from heating up, they're allowed to have that under the license, or is that going to be something separate now?
Two examples, the first being the McCormick, so they do have that red tent that they do shelter, but they have a hot dog cart. So that's permitted under the health unit size. Example 2 is having a little barbecue under a tent. The health unit does not recognize that as a full-time use because of particles, bugs. There's a more chance of something becoming contaminated because of that type of environment. So I guess under the direction of the health unit, they don't want to see food tents being used on a permanent basis. But I mean, if for the cooking part of it, you know what I mean? Just like a little, like as we see, there was a small barbecue, and then there was a little side area where they kept the food. Yeah, that health unit was not happy to see that. So, but I didn't know that that's the health unit did not want full food tents used on a full-time basis.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Just going to touch on, I looked around what other communities are doing and the fees, and I think Kathy made a good example of Quinny West, where the fees are much greater for larger units that come from out of town for events. And why should, she has a relatively small operation or small service compared to a big truck that has all the goodies. Are the fees much different? I'm going to use Applefest as an example, and I'll ask the Deputy Mayor if somebody that brings a big, quite a large vending truck from out of the municipality for Applefest, is it a comparable fee that's being charged to, because you're using less space, I know you are, and things like that, all that taken into consideration?
First of all, this isn't an Applefest discussion, so I mean we're way off topic here. But when people buy,
we're asking about fees.
I understand that, but that's an Applefest charge.
It's just an example. Just
I
as an
understand
example.
that, but
said.
each committee is allowed to do what they want. That's what I'm saying. So that's strictly an Applefest. But Applefest, so we charge per foot. So 10 feet would be a certain cost. For those larger units, they're buying 2 or 3 units, so they're paying more. So yes. But yes, we have been asked if we would charge a local fee, and we've gone back and forth on that over the years, trying to figure it out. At the end of the day, we need to bring in so much money in order to cover all the costs. So, and that's kind of where we go with it. But yes, so it has been discussed. But there's no hard and fast rule on that, is what I'm getting at. So that's why that's Applefest community events. If they did something, might have a different idea. So that's the way it works. Right now, we don't have anything that regulates that.
That's good. I didn't want to, not trying to stir up anything, but McCormick's made a good point there, and I just wanted to clarify what we're doing.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley.
Don't want to keep beating on Applefest, but I did get a little clarification from Linda Whitfield that because we have our own fees and we are not part of the fees and charges bylaw, so I guess we can probably clarify that up that way, but a little bit of wordage probably in the bylaw wouldn't hurt.
Councillor Bateman.
I was just going to ask another clarification question under Schedule D. It's a small thing, maybe 6 down. For the hydro, $20 a day. I understand that makes sense for everywhere, but except for Cotterington, if anybody was underneath the shelter. Because if I'm not mistaken, Jim, you could correct me, the CCAC or whatever, the Cotterington Community Center pays their hydro. So I don't see why they would pay the hydro to the municipality under the fees.
Mr. Miller?
To my knowledge, it's covered by the CCA's meter.
The hydro at the CCA is covered by the CCA? Ms. Whitfield?
They pay the hydro bills, and then we reimburse 50%.
They pay the hydro bills and we pay, so they pay half of the hydro bill essentially at the end of the day. Thank you. Mr. McGee, did you have a comment on that?
With the fees, bylaw 051/2020 did recognize the different sizes of refreshment or mobile canteens, just like Trent Hills does. the McCormicks were paying $275 for their hot dog cart prior to the bylaw, and with the bylaw being enacted, it went down to 200. So they have saved some in a year or so. So there has been a reduction.
The great and benevolent municipality strikes again. Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
I just have, through your mayor, for Alan McGee, bylaw officer. Does this fix that we're not going to be going through what we went through Memorial Park, where we honor our war dead again?
This does fix what went on in Memorial Park. However, if we refer to staff, it could occur tomorrow.
Right. Because we're not changing the bylaw tonight. Right.
I don't like that.
Deputy
Not at
Mayor.
all.
I think we only have one issue, and that was making sure that we don't charge another fee on top of a special event fee like Applefest or an event. Is there a way to?
There are a couple of issues. I wrote down someone wants to amend the rate for the shorter time. Someone else wants stronger, or maybe Councillor Tadman said this as well, stronger wording for licensing fees when someone's conducting a fundraiser, and of course the special events fee. So the reality is they could have done it today, right? Because the bylaw is in existence. Whether we push this for a week or two, I don't think it's going to be terribly detrimental to the municipality at the end of the day. My advice would be to refer it back to staff for proper wording so that we can take a good look at it at the next council meeting. Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
I was just going to ask a quick question of Preston. I saw you hadn't had any yet. Is there not a bylaw on the book right now that covers Memorial Park for motorized vehicles? We spoke about that in the summertime. Or that would fall under maybe Jim.
Yeah, we should have a no camping, no trespassing kind of bylaw for our parks, but I'll refer to Jim for some clarification on that.
Yes, there is a bylaw in place that no motorized vehicles, no camping, all the other.
And that's what caused most of the stir when they had took motorized vehicles, so they were in contravention of that bylaw over and above the other.
Okay, so is everyone in agreement that the three issues that I raised through members of council are the ones that staff should be looking at? So amending the rate with regard to the change of the shortened time, some stronger wording around the licensing fees when it's being conducted for a fundraiser, and working on that special event fee so that we're not, I guess, double dipping would be the worry, I think. Ms. Whitfield.
I would prefer the bylaw to come back without your Schedule D and have all of that in the fees and charges bylaw and not in an individual bylaw. I don't like to see, sorry, but I don't like to see fees in any other bylaw.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense too.
We've put the schedule in because the fees and charges bylaw is only updated twice a year, I think in July and then December, so we wouldn't have had any rates.
So could we get the Schedule D in here for now, and then when we update the fees and charges bylaw, include it in the fees and charges bylaw, and revoke Schedule D from the existing bylaw, right? Then it tidies everything up, and all our fees and charges go into one spot. But until such time, we know what the fees and charges are for this bylaw. Fair enough? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Bateman.
One last quick comment. I know that we're now looking at the shortened and the change in price, but I think it's worth noting. I think under the current bylaw, anybody that's on a site has to remove their equipment daily anyways, right? They're not allowed to leave it overnight on municipal property currently.
Yeah, there's no parking overnight on municipal property.
So I'll need a motion to refer to staff. This was moved by Councillor Tadman, second by Councillor Anderson. That council refers the mobile canteen bylaw report to the next regular council meeting. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Just one more thing. I know you talked about that staff would kind of review 3 items. Are we going to review the hydro issue as well with Codrington? Is that something that we need to, or are we just going to call back that money?
I think given that the municipality pays 50% of the bill for the Codrington Hydro, it would be wise of us to just carry forward, keep going, yeah. That's just my opinion, though. Anything else from members of council? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next report is from the clerk's office, being the procedural bylaw review, specifically a consideration of electronic participation in municipal meetings and/or proxy voting. It was prepared by the clerk, but Mr. Street, do you have anything to add or highlight on this report?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley and seconded by Councillor LeBlanc that Council receive the staff report, procedural bylaw review pertaining to new regulations for electronic participation and proxy voting for information. And further, that Council provide direction to staff for the following items as it relates to Council, Planning, Committee of the Whole, Committees, and Committee of Adjustment. With Council direction, staff will then provide Council with the relevant procedural bylaw for consideration. So then it says 1, 2, 3. Allow use of electronic participation, and if so, to what extent? Allow the use of proxy voting, or 3, don't allow any of these things. So let's deal with the use of electronic participation, and I'll throw my 2 cents in here. I think we should. It's 2020. We have permission to do it. I don't think there's any reason to not permit electronic participation of members of council and citizens at our council meeting. It provides us opportunity if for whatever reason we can't attend physically to actually participate and vote at meetings. And it is a real great opportunity for those people who don't want to leave their house on a February evening to be able to participate in a planning meeting if they want to from the comfort of their own home. So is everyone comfortable with that? So, Mr. Street, if I write allow use of electronic participation with full voting privileges, is that enough for the clerk's office to move forward? Okay. The second one is allow use of proxy voting. Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Just a comment on that. I just want to make sure, like, we don't want to open up for council members that they never have to attend a meeting. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to sit at home then every night and just Zoom in and, vote. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we do have to put some parameters around it, how, for council members, as far as.
So right now, a council member may miss, is it three meetings in a row? So would we say that?
So they will be considered missed meetings.
So can we say that if, they miss, or not miss, but they participate in 3 electronic meetings in a row, the 4th is a no-no, they're considered to have missed 3 meetings?
Okay, yeah. Yep.
Can we add that information? Does that make sense to members of council? Councillor Tadman?
Makes sense most of the time, but I think we always have to be cognizant of the fact that somebody with accessibility issues would have a hard time necessarily getting here all through the winter.
Right.
And so I don't think we put a limit of 3, and hopefully in the future somebody will run for council and be elected and be able to do that. So I think for the most part I can't see councillors or the mayor abusing this, because it gets out in the community pretty fast if you're not participating.
I think we've all discovered that being present in the room allows for a more effective meeting than those darn Zoom meetings we were participating in.
But we had to do it at that time, and we may have to again.
Absolutely, we may. And that will be a different issue altogether if we have to close everything down. This is just if 1 or 2 members need to participate while the rest of us gather in person. And just like the absentee, the 3-meeting absentee, or 3 months of meetings absenteeism, I think it is.
3 months.
3 months of meetings, absenteeism.
Yes, but there's ways too around that if you have a
Exactly.
sickness or whatever.
And the member may petition to council for permission to take, further time off.
Right.
We probably won't have this issue in this council term, but what about a parental leave, right? I mean, we may very well have.
Well, you never know.
Mary?
Well, I guess stranger things have happened in Bethlehem, but
Yeah, you've still been hanging around. So.
not here.
You never know.
You never know. So do we want to put certain limits, Deputy Mayor?
We were talking about 3 meetings, and then
Yeah.
you talked about 3 months, because
months.
actually,
Yeah.
3 months would be more like it. And like we said, with even the participation rule, of course, there's always room to say, hey, yeah, of course it makes sense. So by putting the parameters in, it just creates, then no one's going to abuse it, that's all.
So I'm going to just write with certain limits and understanding that this discussion refers to that 3 months of missed meetings without council's okay, right? Because then if council gives permission, then it can be a forever and ever issue.
Yeah, that.
Right? Councillor Bateman?
I'm okay with that.
I was just going to, I agree with what you just said, but I think we have to remember that it's highly possible that people sitting around this table are going to miss, and I encourage them to do so, because I don't want you coming here if you have the flu, especially in 2020, because, you can't take that chance. So in all likelihood, somebody around this table might be missing 1 or 2 times because flu season's coming, so.
Right, but it's if you miss 3 months of meetings in a row that it becomes problematic under the Act. But yes, good point, thank you. Yeah, please don't ever come out to a meeting if you're sick. Stay home. Huh?
But I have come to meetings sick because I wanted to vote on something.
Not
so
any,
this
but
makes
this will
sense.
allow you to
yes,
do so.
Exactly.
Yes,
What I'm saying is
exactly.
this makes sense.
Brilliant. So moving on to allow the use of proxy voting. Does anyone want to include this in our procedural bylaw?
I'd like to.
You do? Anyone else want to? Yes? I'm not a fan. I think especially if we're allowing voting by electronic means, there's really no reason we couldn't participate regardless of where we are in the world. So I'm not sure why we would permit
It
proxy
might be
voting.
hard if you're in the hospital.
Yes, it would. I would agree.
I don't know how often it'll be used, but I still like the idea that, especially when you're very committed to an issue, and for some reason, whatever, you might have someone in the family that's very sick that you can't leave them, and just don't have the opportunity to get on Zoom.
What happens if you're committed to an issue and the person you've given the proxy to after the discussion around the table decides to vote against the issue that you're in favor of?
Oh, I think that has to be worded so that the person has to vote the way that you've indicated to them in the proxy.
That's not how proxy works, though. Once you give over your vote, you've given it over to someone to make the decision for you.
Well, certainly in federal and provincial, when there's been proxies, you have to follow the wishes of the person that you're voting. I don't know if we can do proxies anymore in elections, but I know it used to be.
Yeah. You mean at the polls?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're allowed to. I don't think you
Used
are.
to have to. Used to be able to.
I think you have to be present now. Councillor Bateman?
I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So if we're going to have electronic, if you're not comfortable coming for whatever reason, you're feeling sick, you can still participate via Zoom. So under what circumstance would the proxy kick in? It would have to be something that stopped you from participating via Zoom, like a hospitalization. So it's not going to come up all that often. So can you put it in there that you have to exhaust the Zoom, and then the proxy gets triggered, that you can't just take the proxy over the Zoom? Because it would take certain circumstances. I don't think you could have both, because then somebody might just do the proxy when the Zoom's available.
Right.
If you're capable of doing Zoom, that should be the first and foremost.
Okay. Councillor Anderson?
It can be just a matter of you just can't be on Zoom and you can't be at the meeting, but there's a vote going down that particular night that you want.
But if you turn over your proxy vote, you're turning it over for the whole meeting. I don't think you're just, we'd have to word it very carefully if you just want it for one issue. And then how do you turn your proxy vote over for one issue and not all the other issues? Because if we do proxy voting, we would essentially be handing 2 votes, or 1 extra vote to another member of council. That's the,
Yeah, I'm
That's what
not
we're
sure
doing.
if I agree with it either, but I'm just.
Not necessarily, because you give the wishes of how you speak to that person. And I wouldn't necessarily appoint everybody around this table to be my proxy person. I'd certainly ask the person I trust the most, and you would, and everybody else here would. So, and so you would discuss what is on your agenda for that night and say, this is the way I feel about this. But if somebody comes up with something, then that's okay. But I definitely do not want you to support this. And these are my reasons, so please do not follow my wishes. And I mean, it's all recorded, so they would know afterwards, the person. So I don't have a problem with
Deputy Mayor?
Are you allowed to give your proxy vote to anybody? Or does it have to be a member of council?
Has to be a member of council.
So, yeah, so, no. I just don't think it's I don't think it's a good idea. That's all.
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. I think for many years we've gotten around all of this proxy stuff with not having to deal with it all. I can't see why all of a sudden now it's something that we need to add in. If I miss a meeting, then for whatever the reason is, then I miss a meeting and I miss the vote, right? You still have to have quorum in order for everybody to participate. So one vote might make or break, but I don't see the urgency in proxy voting at all.
Councillor LeBlanc.
That's why, that's why I wrote in, do not allow, the third one. I'm the one that wrote that in.
Yeah, that's not me.
I wrote it in.
So that would be do not allow any of them, right?
That's right.
Right, yeah.
So that's why I wrote that, because
So I'm just seeking your opinion on proxy voting at this stage. What do you think?
to me, I like attending all the meetings and I like having my vote because I was elected to have those votes and we were there. If I'm sick in the hospital, I see something is gone, then I would want that, but it's a 50-50 with me. It's okay?
It's got to be at least 60,
Is it?
40.
If it's 50-50, maybe you'd like to give your vote to Councillor Rowley. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. So yes or
No,
no,
you don't
I'm
ask
just going to go
me.
around the table. Yes or no on proxy voting?
I didn't know.
No?
No.
Councillor
Yes.
Yes.
No.
And I'd also be a no, so we won't be doing proxy voting. So the motion at the end, and this is Councillor Rowley's and Councillor LeBlanc's motion, so make sure you're comfortable with this, will read that council provide direction to staff for the following, and it will say, allow the use of electronic participation with full voting privileges with certain limits. And then the staff will bring back what those certain limits are as per our discussion this evening. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Rowley? Are you comfortable with that, Councillor LeBlanc? Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. And 10.5 is repeal and replace the property standards bylaw. Uh-oh. There we go. Mr. Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, Worship.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council receive the staff report dated November 2nd, 2020, from the Director of Planning and Development regarding the repeal and replace of the municipality's property standards bylaw, and further, the Council enact the property standards bylaw as attached to this report. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
If I could get Mr. Walsh to speak to the SDA portion of this for the short-term accommodation, because we've spoken a couple times, myself and Councillor Tadman, because we brought that one to your attention on Harbor Street. Is this going to effectively alleviate some of the issues that are going on there and other places?
Through your Worship, yes, there is the intention to have the property standards bylaw address some of those issues. For example, the over occupancy issue, I think that's Section 323, 321. In Section 3.21, you'll see items J, K, and L. And there you'll see that there's a limit on the occupancy of a home. So it basically comes down to 2 persons per bedroom. What happens with some of these short-term accommodations, they become party houses, and they move as many people in as they can to help pay for the rental, and that's where a lot of the disturbances and abuses of the property occur.
Go ahead.
I don't know if it's covered here, but it'd be covered under the parking bylaw, or we'll be working to here because it's occupancy. I think that's great, 2 per. So if you could have, say, 3 bedrooms in there, and they're following the occupancy portion of this, but not all the places. And again, I point out that one that we looked at on Harbor Street, there wouldn't be the parking for that. So is that going to be worked in here? Like occupancy and car parking spots are going to be two different things.
Through your worship, I think what we'll see is we had a pretty good reply on the short-term accommodation questionnaire, and I'm going through the data, trying to create some graphs and things like that, so it's taken a bit of a wading through. But what we're seeing is that there's concern about parking, and I expect in the draft zoning bylaw amendment that there will be some provisions, one, to define short-term accommodations, and secondly, to speak specifically about parking requirements for a short-term accommodation. If they can't have it on site, then that will be the next governing or constraining or determining factor of the occupancy of the site.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the only, just to speak to everybody, the only reason I bring it up is because we've been here, there's proposed developments, and parking has been on the forefront of, the one on Cedar Street and other areas, and now effectively be November 1st with the winter parking in force. If they don't have the parking, then it's going to become a major issue, and then we're going to be dealing with parking issues nonstop, along with the other issues that come with these party houses. But the parking stuff, comes to our council almost we've had Mead Street, we had the proposed development, and everything is around parking, because there's more people living in even just individual houses than there ever used to be, with the second dwelling being allowed now. You've got 6 cars for a driveway that was made for 3, and now they use the lawn.
Does this bylaw cover things like large lots that have been deforested and shrubs have been left all over the place?
Yes, it does.
And
the bylaw enforcement officer and I have had some discussions on that, and we've made some modifications to account for that.
And what about those properties where there may be some confusion as to where the front yard and the backyard is?
That's a zoning bylaw matter.
Okay.
But you'll find that there is some restrictions on temporary structures and terrapin garages.
Thank you. Councillor Tadman?
I'm glad that's going to be in it. That was one of my questions. And the other one, is this totally just a health issue, or should it be in this bylaw too, where I can think of one Airbnb where they're not hooked up to or like the septic tank. It's not in the town, the municipality urban. It's out where they have a septic tank, and yet they're running an Airbnb with a chemical toilet.
Mr. Walsh?
So I know that should be inspected by the health, but shouldn't it also be in here that it's not allowed?
Through your worship, yes, there is a provision included now that will address that.
Okay.
And to my experience, the Section 8 of the building code lays down how a septic system is designed. So there's a formula that's based on the number of rooms, number of fixtures, etc. And when you have over occupancy of a home, the septic system will outstrip its capacity in a short time. So we have provisions in here now that will address that.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley?
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, I just want to maybe get some clarification on the fees for some of these infractions. If I could just get a bit of clarification. Are we going to set the fees and then go through the Provincial Offences Act to kind of fine and collect those things, or is there already a kind of a set dollar amount for the fees?
Right. So the fines will be, there's an introduction to administrative monetary penalties in here. So you'll see that on the last page. And so that gives the municipality the discretion of imposing it with the equivalent of a fee for service. And so if we are caused to administer this bylaw in terms of enforcement, then we can collect now a fee for the administration of this bylaw. So I think it's $225 or so as an attached schedule to this. And I think at the Director of Finance's direction as well, the intent is to get that into the fees and charges bylaws, kind of do a wrap up at some point. But that kind of fee can also be compounded. So if they fail to pay, then that can be doubled. So it can be very effective, and it's collectible as taxes because it's a fee for service. So it becomes very there's a higher rate of compliance when you have administrative monetary penalties, is what I hear.
Councillor Bateman?
Two-part question. Part will be for Mr. Walsh and then the new fire chief. So going back to the short-term accommodation portion of it, once we enact this, will it be everybody abides by right away, then we're not going to be grandfathering back? They'll have to abide by the stuff that's in here, the existing ones? Because I think when we talk, there's like 40 or 50 best guesstimate in Brighton right now.
Through your worship, yeah, there's no grandfathering to a property standards bylaw.
And then the second part to the fire chief, once these are identified, because there's two different types of short-term accommodations. Like, there's the party house where the owner is absent and all you know what breaks loose in these places. And then there's the one where the owner lives there. So will they fall under to make sure that they have the proper exits, the proper signage, now that they're going to be having to follow set rules? Because it's kind of like because a lot of them are operating in houses. The ones that live in the house, they have their Airbnb, but they live there. But that doesn't mean that they're set up with proper fire escapes, fire extinguishers, and the whole 9 yards to have guests on site.
Through your worship, I don't think the Fire Chief Jim Smith has got the benefit of knowing this bylaw too well yet. But I think in general, the building code has some fire code. As a rule of thumb, the building code builds and the fire code maintains. But having said that, fire needs to be circulated building permits and particularly commercial ones. But there's some structured standards that change when you go from, say, 3 guest suites to 4 in terms of fire code, and again at about 8. I don't know what they are. I'm sure the chief does know.
Do you have any comment at this stage, Chief?
I have not looked at that at all, so no comment at this time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Councillor Tadman?
I understand that some people don't worry about the fine because they make so much money that they just automatically pay the fine and just keep going. The thing that really worries me the most is with the party places especially, and in this one instance, there's 2 couples operating and they're never there. They live out of town. How are we as residents guaranteed that somebody's going in there and sterilizing that place after they've all been there with COVID now? I don't think we can, unless we have somebody that goes every time they leave and make sure somebody's there. So I don't know if you could put something in here, but it does worry me, and it worries the neighbors surrounding those kind of places. So I don't know what we can do about that.
Through your worship, the staff will give that some thought when coming back with a report on the results of the public consultation, and we might just have a report saying here's some policy directives, and we'll pick up all the issues that council might want to see the details of a bylaw reflect. First thoughts are we may look at a licensing bylaw, and that licensing bylaw will involve circulation of a licensing application to the health unit, so that the health unit will have a record and they can do their inspections accordingly, and they would be administering things with respect to the COVID rules.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. With respect to COVID rules, I think as council, there's certain things we just can't regulate. I mean, we don't regulate whether or not stores are following COVID rules or that sort of thing either. But we have to just make sure that the right authority is aware and is able to do that, right? I think it's a difficult one to write in at this point because, you know, it's all new and how do we go about this? And I just want to be clear publicly, like, I'm not against short-term accommodations. When done right, it's good for our community. But this, of course, comes from issues that have come up, right? And it's good to see that we're dealing with some of those issues, and I'd like to see something, you know, clean that we're able to enforce, put together so that we can slowly start not having to deal with those issues. It would be great.
Councillor Tadman.
Thank you. And the other thing that I hear complaints, and I think others have too, is we have a noise bylaw, correct? And I wouldn't take kindly to somebody next door partying at 4 a.m. And after a while, you get tired of having to phone the police because the police come, tell them to shut it down, and as soon as they're gone up the road, it starts all over again. We can't control something like that either. So there's a lot of problems when people don't reside, at least in the community, when they're running an Airbnb. So we can't stop people from investing in that, but there is a lot of problems with it, and obviously we get the complaints as well as you. So I don't know how we correct those kind of things. The only thing I would like to see, maybe if we could possibly at least have enforce that they put up the rules for, at least for this COVID period especially, that it has to be sanitized after each weekend.
Sounds like something we should be dealing with through the short-term accommodation study, and that those rules and regs that'll come forward through that, rather than a property standards bylaw. But I see Mr. Walsh making some notes, so good comments there. I'm going to go over to Councillor Anderson. Councillor Anderson?
I understand the Airbnb also has regulations and rules right now. If you rent your facility out, you must wait 2 or 3 days before you rent it out the second time. I know some people that have them, and that's what they say, that they're having to follow Airbnb rules, or you don't get bookings from them. So some of these bookings are also coming, not, everybody thinks they're all Airbnb. They're not. They're Kijijis, they're all kinds of other sources that they're getting their business. And those are the ones that they're not paying any fees to anybody for. Airbnb, you got to pay a pretty high fee, and their rules are pretty high. Their requirements for you to have your facility with them are pretty high too. So they won't allow you to just slap them in there every night under the current rules. I know that. And if somebody wants to research that, they're welcome to.
Councillor Bateman.
No, I agree. The ones that are causing the issues, and Deputy Mayor Vig spoke to that too, they're not following the rules. They're not following those rules. The one we're speaking about, and we spoke to Mr. Walsh about, this summer alone, they made an estimated between $80,000 and $90,000, and they didn't follow any rules. And they rented it every day to make that kind of coin, and that's lowballing what some of them, that's what's classified as the party house. They rent it to whoever they want, and they do whatever they want. So.
Councillor Tadman.
You made me wait. No, I can't remember.
So that's what I write it down so I don't forget. Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you, through your mayor, for Mr. Walsh. Some of these Airbnbs that have contact with me, I've always put them in contact with you, and they've called you. All of them have. That I've had problems, or neighbours beside them that have had problems. One of the things when I read the bylaw, when you talk about noise, cannabis, and I know we don't have the Airbnb one yet for accommodation, does this bylaw stand by itself, or do you make references to the other bylaws, like the noise bylaw, 8.1? You know, you can't start work before 7 in the morning, you got to stop by 9 at night. Are you going to make references so they cross one another? Because right now this bylaw doesn't cross with anything else, but it mentions everything else. Is it a bylaw that stands on its own? I had a bunch of comments, but unfortunately, we need an IT guy. I can't open it up because it's just rotating again. So I had a bunch of questions, but that was one of my key ones. Are they going to interconnect like 14.1 or 8.1, so you know what bylaw, which one to go to, so they all interconnect? Or is this just going to stand by itself? Cannabis going to stand by itself? Affordable housing, or the housing and the excess rooms, is that going to stand by itself? And when people call up with the neighbors with Airbnbs, I will keep on sending them to you because it's not my thing. That's why they call you so much. Okay.
Mr. Walsh.
The intention of this bylaw, excuse me, Mayor, the intention of this bylaw is to have it stand on its own two legs. Normally interpreting two bylaws that maybe overlap or relate somehow, it's the bylaw with the highest constraint that prevails. And so some of that language might be useful in a bylaw, it might be in this one. This is really a wholesale revision to our old one. This is meant to stand on its own two legs. And the benefit of that is if, such as a short-term accommodation or any property standards infraction, then there might be infraction of this bylaw and there might be infraction of the noise bylaw. With every infraction comes an additional fine. So with additional fines come actual more compliance, hopefully. So there is some benefit of having it stand on its own two legs, in my view.
Anything further? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. There are no notices of motion or motions. Move into unfinished business. The first motion deals with 13.1 and 13.2. And it's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council defer the staff report regarding Hamilton Woods subdivision, Phase 3, to the November 9th, 2020 planning meeting. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. That takes us to 13.3. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The Council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw for prescribing standards for the maintenance and occupancy of all property within the municipality of Brighton and to repeal bylaw 082-2002. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. There are no reports of advisory committees of council, reports, minutes, and council reports. There are no reports and minutes of statutory committees, boards, or external agencies. We have one piece of correspondence from Grand Northumberland. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that council support the request. From Sharon Graham, Grand Northumberland, permission to shine orange floodlights on the municipal building and the entranceway of the King Edward Centre, November 25th to December 10th, and to dye orange ribbons around poles in downtown Brighton. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. FYI correspondence is Northumberland County Quarterly Update, Summer 2020. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receive the Northumberland County Quarterly Update, Summer 2020. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. On page 31, regarding development of poverty reduction strategies, it says a working group has been established. Is there someone from our municipality, whether it be council or staff or just a private citizen, that is participating in that? Do you know?
I'll find out. I don't know.
Okay. Second question, page 20, strategic priorities update regarding roads, yards, RFP for a consultant. Is this to kind of create more buildings within the municipality or within the county, as far as like another works garage or something like that? Do they not have enough? I know they have a couple that are probably not even being used at this particular stage.
I think it's with an eye to consolidate yards, not to add yards.
Not to add. Consolidate meaning how will that affect service in this end of the municipality?
I don't know the answer to that question, but the intention would not be to affect service at all.
That's to be hoped.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. And before we move to question period, I am going to put the motion on the floor with regard to the appointment of the library board person. Normally we would deal with that when we came out of camera, but we already dealt with that issue in camera. So I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council appoints Shirley Coveney as a member of the Brighton Public Library Board for the remainder of the term of council. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Now we'll move into question period. If any member of the public has a question with regard to anything that appeared on the agenda, I'd ask you to step forward. None noted. Thank you. We dealt with our on-camera session in the first closed portion of the meeting. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council held on November 2nd, 2020. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that the November 2nd, 2020 council meeting adjourn at 7:51 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Drive safely home, everyone.